Welcome to the Undo Dilemma minisodes, where we unpack the real stuff people are facing at work and in life.
The weird, the wonderful, and the way too familiar.
Each week, we pick one listener dilemma and try to make sense of it with care, curiosity, and no corporate nonsense. Let's get into it. Okay, I'm so excited about dilemmas. I really love dilemmas.
Me too. Me too.
You know why? Because it's just good that other people have problems.
Not just us.
It's not just us.
We're not the only ones that have issues.
Yeah.
Yes.
What did Aaliyah say? We've got issues.
We've got issues.
Gone too soon. Okay, so dilemma this week starts like this. The subject line is, I stayed silent and I can't stop thinking about it. Hi, Emissy and Dulcie. I've debated sending this because I'm honestly embarrassed by how I handled it. But I've been turning it over in my head for 2 weeks, and your podcast has been one of the few places that makes me feel like I won't be judged for asking out loud. So here goes. A couple of Fridays ago, I was in our team meeting, same as always. At one point, my manager made a jokey comment about one of our new team members. Let's call him Chris. It was one of those throwaway remarks, a dig about rainbows in the slide deck and Pride Month coming early. He said it with a smirk, and the room kind of half laughed in that awkward, uncomfortable way people do when they don't know what to say. Chris just smiled and carried on, but I knew he clocked it. And I just said nothing, which feels even worse because I'm the one who referred Chris to this role. We worked together a few years ago. We're not close friends, but we always got on, and he's brilliant at what he does. He only started here a month ago. I vouch for this place to him, and I feel like I've let him down. I also have a really solid relationship with my manager. We've worked together for ages. I feel like I've learned a lot from him, and I've never seen this side of him before. It's knocked me sideways. Now I don't know what to do. Is it too late to say something? Would bringing it up just make things worse for Chris? Would it mess up my relationship with my manager? I've always thought of myself as someone who'd speak up, but when it counted, I froze. I want to make it right, I just don't know how. Thanks for reading and for creating a space where this kind of thing can be unpacked. It means a lot. Thanks, Jamie. Oh boy. I've written about silence recently.
Yeah.
And the weight sometimes of silence. And I think this is a really interesting dilemma. So I think the first thing I'd say to Jamie is that what happened, what you did, your reaction of silence, sometimes it's not that I'm not trying to say it's okay, but I don't want you to like whack yourself over the head too much about it, because it's a common way that we respond to shock or trauma, right? Or fear or whatever. Like it's not as if you being silent in that moment is so extraordinary and you're such a coward for doing it. It's a very, like you said, the room kind of did that half awkward laugh type thing, all that kind of thing. Like this is when things like this come out of nowhere, silence, awkwardness, etc. are really common responses. But I will also really commend you for the fact that you are still thinking about this and thinking about a way to put it right. And I say that the level of vulnerability you're showing here means to me that you are someone that actually has a lot of integrity. But this is not an easy one. I've forgotten what his name, Chris, your colleague Chris, right? He's new in. I'm going to go out and assume that he is a gay man or a bisexual man, but you know, that might be the reason for your manager to make those kind of pride, rainbow comments, that kind of thing. And again, for him in that situation, being new and seemingly being subjected to some form of like prejudice, of course he would just sort of smile and carry on because he probably also was very shocked. And so I would say the first thing to do is to talk to him, you know, not in a way of, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Don't center yourself in that conversation, but actually just to check in with him and let him know that you saw what happened and you are apologetic that you should have said something and you're happy to go and say something, but just more importantly to check, how are you? Are you okay? What can I do? You know, can I help? Like, this isn't okay. And maybe have the suggestion of, I will talk to our manager. I will do whatever needs to be done to make sure this doesn't happen again. So it's to have a conversation with him, to check that he's okay, to offer support. And, you know, from what I'm getting here is that you see yourself as an ally. And as such, it's so important that it's not performative. It's not a one and done thing. It's a journey, right? There's always something to be done. So if you believe yourself to be an ally, talk to him, offer your support and help. Make the offer of having a conversation. You said you've got a good relationship with your manager now. I know that can also feel very risky, and we all, as humans, self-preservation is really important. But if Chris is comfortable with it, and so you're not running in to be the sort of knight in shining armor, if Chris is comfortable with you speaking to the manager to just clarify that needs to not happen again, just to call him out on that, then go ahead. If Chris does not want you to have that conversation, do not have that conversation. It's about Chris in this moment. So if you end up having a conversation with your manager, I think there is something here to just be say, like, hey, a couple of things were said in that meeting that seemed quite inappropriate to me and could be perceived in a certain way. And it would just be so great for you to not repeat that and to make sure that this is an inclusive space. Like, I've never seen that from you and I don't want to see that again. Like, that's not okay. It depends. You said you have a good relationship. I don't know how much flex there is in that. That's honestly for you to work out. I don't know enough to know how to script a conversation like that. But if Chris wants you to have a conversation, you can go ahead and have a gentle but firm conversation about that. But yeah, it's a tricky one. That's what's coming to mind for me. If Chris wants support, if he wants to escalate it to HR, support him in that. I think it first of all, for me, it starts with centering Chris, because he's the one that was aggressed, and then taking it from there with courage and sensitivity. I don't know. That's what's coming to my mind. Yemi, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you, Dulcie, that this is about Chris. It's you writing in, but at its core, this is about somebody else, not you specifically. And I would say in the first instance, similar to what Dulcie has already said, extend some grace to yourself. You're not the one who made those comments. So it almost sounds as though you're almost taking responsibility for your money because you were the one who recommended. I've been in a similar situation before, actually, where someone I had recommended for a role was treated badly or inappropriately. That person did not have a good experience of the company that I was working with. And I felt some kind of responsibility because I had recommended the company to her.
Yeah.
And I had to do the work to realize that actually I wasn't the one in the wrong. I recommended the company to her based on my experience. And just because her mileage varied, it did not excuse the company's behavior. Or the person's behavior who worked for that company, but it also did not make me complicit in the guilt of the company, right? So I think you need to be very careful here not to attach your manager's actions to yourself in that way. I remember, again, this is about Chris. Prioritize Chris. What does Chris? Chris is a whole adult. Do not infantilize him. Do not try and fix things for him. He's a grown adult, just as you as a grown adult. You are not his manager. You both have the same manager. So I would say be very careful about trying to manage the situation for Chris. The most important thing is your is in that relationship that you have with Chris, making him feel heard and seen by you. I saw that, Chris. It was not okay. I do not agree with what he said. Basically, what you're telling us, tell him.
Yeah.
He needs to hear what you were saying.
Yeah, but don't tell him the bit about what you thought about yourself and that you.
No, don't make it about you. But tell him the thing. You saw it. You did not agree with it, right? And if he wants you to take it further with the manager, you are more than happy to. But you also think about it for yourself as well. Is this something that you want to do for yourself? Because I feel like almost like you may see it as a way of absolving yourself in some way. That if you go and speak to your manager, that almost absolves you of that guilt. I will say examine your feelings of guilt as well, so that you don't end up projecting your feelings onto Chris. You may have an idea of how he may feel, but you don't really know how he really feels until you speak to him. So I would say prioritize your relationship with Chris over everything else and move forward without infantilizing him or lessening his agency, because the danger is you don't want to become an intermediary between Chris and your manager.
And at this point, sorry, go on.
Yeah, so just, exercise a little bit of discernment, really make it about him and how he wants to move forward with it.
Yeah, completely. So I think, we're both in the same space of it's about Chris and what. And another thing that came to my mind is at this point, all you know is what happened in that meeting. You don't know if Chris had a conversation with the manager outside of that. He may well, I very much doubt this is the first time Chris has experienced this kind of nonsense. And he may well have already had a conversation with your manager outside of that meeting. So you don't want to risk going and exacerbating things or whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you're not the knight in shining armor here. You are just someone who referred someone into a role, who noticed something that's not okay. So the only sensible thing to do is talk to Chris, let him know that you saw, and whatever he needs from you, you're willing to support him with. And then, I think there's probably some work that you need to do, because the line that I thought was interesting is you said, I've always thought of myself as someone who'd speak up when it counted, but I froze. So I think there's something here about self-image. And, I said like allyship is a journey. I think there's actually, the whole ally thing is tricky these days. I think people like to see themselves as an ally. They like the feel and the sound of the label, but not necessarily the work it takes to truly be one. And a real ally never would say that they're an ally. It's not about how you see yourself, it's about how you actually move through the world. So rather than, I see myself as someone who, it needs to be starting to think about, how do I do things, not the label, but the action I take. And so this opportunity is a great one for you, in that there might have been a way you saw yourself prior to this, but the reality of a situation, when confronted with it, showed you something new about yourself, right? So rather than using it as something to self-flagellate with, you can actually use it as a turning point in, how will I, so this will happen again at some point, you'll see some sort of injustice at some point. Moving forward, how would I do this if it were to happen again? And really like play that, not in a sort of rumination way, but just like, okay, what would I have done differently in that moment? And it may well be that actually in the moment you wouldn't have done anything differently, but you would have handled something differently straight afterwards. Like there are so many different ways in which someone could attack a situation like this. But I would just say, just sit with yourself around how you see yourself, because there's just a lot of, and I really am not trying to be a bitch to you, Jamie, but there was just a lot of language I noticed about, I've always thought of myself, I froze, I want to make it right, I don't know how. There's a lot of I in this. There wasn't very much Chris in it. I feel like I've let him down. And of course, ego is a thing, right? We all have our own egos, but I think in a situation like this, the first thing should be thinking about the person that was aggressed in the situation, as opposed to you as the bystander centering yourself. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing. You're writing a letter about your own issue here. So I'm really not trying to be a judgmental, but even the subject line, I stayed silent and I can't stop thinking about it. It feels like this is something that's really challenging your self-image.
Right.
And so, again, I feel like this is becoming a bit of a one-size-fits-all for us, right? Go to therapy.
Like, I was just going to say that, like, therapy is a wonderful place to really examine these sorts of things because, like we said, we are not professionals, right? We can only tell you based on our own kind of life experiences and our own points of view. We don't know what it's like to be you. We don't know whether there were any kind of underlying things or any context that's happened before. We only know what you put on that email. So it may be worth actually just speaking to someone about this because they will then have, sharing that context with them and giving you that safe space to be able to really examine your feelings and move through your feelings, not putting them away in a box and saying, no, actually going through them. But I think having some professional help to help you on that journey will be really beneficial.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to end on a high note, the fact that you care enough about this.
You're a good friend. You care about him.
You're a good person. You have integrity. I think you just need to, it's the action now to support your core beliefs. That's the stuff that's probably getting at you a little bit.
Yeah.
But you haven't let yourself down. You haven't disappointed yourself or anyone else in this situation. This is life. This is opportunity to learn and do something new. And your self-awareness is fantastic. So don't stop caring. I mean, listen, this one, it's not an easy one, this one.
No.
It's the beginning, I think, of some more work and a journey that you're on. But keep your head up, Jamie. You're on the right track. And again, anyone listening who has been in a situation where you've been in the same place as Jamie, or if you've been in the position of Chris and you've had a similar thing go on, whatever it might be, if you have advice to give to Jamie, that would be amazing. Head to Instagram. You'll see the dilemma there. Any advice would be much appreciated. So good luck, Jamie.
Good luck.
Thanks for listening to this week's Undo Dilemma. If you've got something sticky, awkward, or just plain weird happening at work or in life, send it to us at dilemma@thisisworkworld.com. You stay anonymous, we talk it out.
And if this helped, pass it on to someone who might need it too.
And don't forget, new full-length episodes of Undo land on Mondays. So wherever you are in the week, we've got you.